Hello, and welcome to this McKnight Senior Living webinar, Effective Online Reputation Management for Senior Living. I'm McKnight Senior Living Editor Lois Bowers, and I'll be the moderator. As COVID cases continue to increase and the general public becomes more cautious, it's critical for your senior living community to have a great online reputation. In this webinar, you'll learn steps to improve your online reputation, including how to leverage data from online review and social commentary to improve your customer experience. And you'll hear an example of how one senior living community found success. We'll hear from our speakers in a moment, but first we have some housekeeping matters to take care of. First, today's slides are available for download. Just click on the Handouts tab on the left side of your screen to find a PDF of the slides to print out, as well as additional resources. Next, if you are having any audio problems with this broadcast, please first check the volume control on your device. This is the most common cause of hearing issues. The sound should be coming from your computer speakers. Also, we will have time for questions and answers near the end of today's presentation. If you have any questions about the information presented, please feel free to send them directly to us at any time during this hour by clicking on the Questions and Answers tab on the left. Questions that we don't get to in real time will be answered afterward. This educational offering has been reviewed by the National Continuing Education Review Service of the National Association of Long-Term Care Administrator Boards. It has been approved for 1 clock hour, and attendees must stay tuned to this event in its entirety during the original broadcast to receive a certificate. You can track CE requirements through the course completion tracker, which you can access through the last icon in the area below the open webinar panel. Once you have achieved 50 viewing minutes, a View Certificate button will display, and the required viewing duration will have a green checkbox. You then can view and save your certificate. A copy also will be emailed to you afterward. Today's program is made possible from support from Reputation.com. After this webinar, you can visit the company website at Reputation.com. Finally, this session will be archived and available on demand shortly after this live broadcast. If you'd like to watch it again or tell your colleagues about it, the URL to the registration page to enter this studio is mcknightseniorliving.com/111620webinar. And now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Annie Harmon is Head of Strategic Consulting, Healthcare, and Life Sciences at Reputation.com. As that title would suggest, she provides strategic consulting and data-driven insights to try to maximize value, drive acquisition, and improve retention for senior living communities and healthcare brands. Before starting in her current role, Annie directed strategy for digital consumer experience at Ascension, which has 2,600 locations, including 54 senior living communities across 12 states. Also in her career, she has led digital strategies in the pharmaceutical, nutrition, healthcare, and
to attract and convert new residents and patients. And this was important even prior to the COVID pandemic and continues to be of increasing importance as our industry continues to react to the current situation and future pandemic. The second piece of information that you're going to walk away with today is how to optimize your community's online presence. We're also going to talk about some of the details that are common mistakes and what you need to do in order to fix those. The third lesson we're going to be providing is how you can leverage feedback data that's going to improve your resident and employee experience. And we'll cover that a little bit later in the presentation today. But I want to start by introducing my colleague, Kyle, who is going to tell us a little bit more about current trends in the senior living industry. Kyle?
Yeah, thank you, Annie. Really excited to be here and excited to share what we came up with and areas we think we can help. So the first thing that my team sees and what we try to work with senior living leaders, there's a few trends that, I'll highlight in these next couple of slides that we seem to, be seeing over and over again. The first trend is anticipated growth. 2020 was a challenging year, for occupancy, as Annie said, but the industry is still expecting rapid growth in the coming years. With 50 million seniors in the United States and the number of Americans ages 65 and older will more than double over the next 40 years, reaching almost 80 million by 2040. The senior living segment will see significant growth in occupancy, and the need for consumer patient feedback data will be critical in helping senior living organizations differentiate their brand and service offerings. The second trend is in the way the care is being searched for and selected. 82% of those looking for senior care online are not the ones seeking care. The adult children and younger loved ones are more often than not searching for the needed care. This demographic overwhelmingly finds and chooses businesses based upon search results and ultimately reviews. We've also talked to our customers in the senior care space, and they've had to evaluate and change their approach to collecting feedback from caregivers and the residents' patients themselves. Being smart and strategic about which points in that resident journey that you initiate a feedback request can make or break a brand's ability to gather the volume of feedback that is needed to not only compete online, but also to improve internally. And finally, employee burnout and turnover has often been talked about as a stressor within senior care. And now more than ever, it's just as important to collect and listen to feedback internally as it is with caregivers and residents. You need your frontline workers and staff to feel that they're being listened to and taken care of, because if you don't, almost certainly going to be a decline in resident satisfaction that's almost looming up ahead. And with that, I'll kick it off to Annie to go over about our philosophy and just kind of our pillars of success.
Thanks, Kyle. So, we're looking at these trends, and what we realize is that senior care access and delivery are constantly evolving, and reputation and experience management are so critical to the consumer-driven environment that we are moving toward. So what we do when we look at what this journey looks like is that we break it down into several steps showing how most senior care brands are generally thinking about this customer journey. So there are lots of ways you could break this down, but for our purposes, we like to look at it as more of a cycle than a linear experience, because the way that you are going to get found is also driven by the things that you do to get better. So it starts with online search. And, more and more, we're seeing that a consumer or a family member is going to start with their search for care, typically online. Increasingly, these consumers are researching the various communities, even if they have been given a referral from a physician or an orthopedic surgeon. They are looking at those ratings and reviews to understand what are people saying about these locations. Before they actually schedule a tour of your communities, they're going to make their selection based on the feedback that they are seeing online. So they're going to discover a location that meets their needs, whether it's a skilled nursing facility, rehab center, memory care, senior living community. They're going to discover these options and then make a decision to move forward with a choice. Where they select is going to be based on a number of factors, including, as I said, ratings and reviews, the proximity to family members, and the various offerings and services that are available. Increasingly, and especially now, we are seeing that people expect that they can not only schedule a tour online, but also to be able to evaluate that facility and community by conducting a virtual tour. So that can be enabled through a number of different means. And if you don't want to have it be something through, a live stream of Zoom or FaceTiming, you can also record a video tour and upload these to your various business listings websites where you are going to be found. And then thirdly, we see get better. So this is where it's really important to look at how you convert your consumers from that scheduling a tour to actually becoming a resident. And once they are, you're going to be looking at the feedback that is provided. And the only way to understand that overall resident experience and your brand is to listen to that feedback. A good experience is going to lead to positive feedback, obviously, and it's going to drive future acquisition, whereas a poor experience is going to create brand detractors, and that's going to limit future conversion when others see that. So to succeed in driving acquisition, you need to look at this entire journey: get found, get chosen, and get better. And you need to maximize your online visibility, activate conversion drivers such as positive feedback, and then use all of that feedback to look at actionable insights. So let's talk about some of the elements of this program and, what does success look like? And before I click to the next slide, I think some of you are probably noticing there's some interesting text, something going on with our text here. We'll make sure that when you get a copy of these, that all of the text and the font is all legible. So why is all of this so important? Why is it important to look at your reputation and experience management as a holistic brand point of view? Well, it needs to be a very complete program, and you need to bring together sales and marketing with your consumer experience goals. So there are a lot of concepts to think about this, and reputation management really brings all of these things together. It's really a unifying model where you look at the ways that these two areas complement and empower the two sides of the house with business objectives. So if you start with sales and marketing's goal of improving visibility, well, CX is also looking at how you get found by driving access to your brand, access to your communities. And once these consumers have accessed your care, you can then collect and highlight feedback from satisfied residents and patients. This is going to serve to increase your future conversion. That's the get chosen piece. The third piece of this is you're going to pull all of that feedback into a single place to understand your overall brand sentiment. How are people feeling about you? And are there any areas operationally that you need to look at in order to improve the overall experience? As the line between the marketing and the consumer experience goals really continues to blur, the most successful senior living brands are finding that there are just too many feedback sources that are broken off and siloed from each other, and they really need to start looking at things holistically. So you can't just say, well, here's what our brand is over here, and this is what our brand says, and this is our brand promise. You also have to look at what the actual experience of that brand is. And so later in the session, we're going to explain how to bring all of this data into a single hub. This way you can analyze it, and you can look at the holistic voice of the customer for your brand. And you can start seeing where are those areas operationally that we need to make improvements in order to deliver on what our brand promise is. And that's why it's so important to be looking at things from both perspectives, and also to look at, you look at a slide like this and you can see that it starts with getting found, then you get chosen, then you get better. but also you can read this from the bottom to the top. Once you get better, then you're going to get chosen, which is going to help you to get found in the future. So really looking at all three areas and looking at the ways that sales and marketing and consumer experience really need to come together to deliver. So now that I've set the stage for what this looks like holistically, it's really important to look at the way that the most important piece of search technology has done to change the journey here. So I'm going to turn it back to Kyle, and he's going to talk about the way that the consumer journey has been affected by Google. Kyle?
Yep. Thank you, Annie. So as Annie mentioned, right, Google is the main place that consumers are going to find you, and the way consumers search for care has shifted, and senior care brands need to adapt to this changing behavior. You know, in the past, we could rely on broad tactics like radio advertisement and billboards, but now we have to target individual searches based on their intent, such as nursing home near me or retirement community nearby. And this is a much more qualified target because you know that that person is searching for your service, the right content and the right moment to be found. But you have to be found, right? So let's further dissect the senior living consumer journey on Google. First, Google makes up 90% of online local search. This is where people are searching for care, either for themselves or a loved one. Care seekers used to have to visit third-party review sites. Now they see reviews, star ratings, and information to call or make an appointment right here in Google search results. These search results are so sticky. Consumers are increasingly converting right here in the Google My Business results that you can see without ever taking the next step to visit your website. This is known as zero-click. According to Google, more than half of today's searches are considered zero-click. And to dive into that more, right? They're not even going to your website. They're just making their decision based upon what they see online. Your digital presence entry point has shifted from your brand website to your entire online presence, particularly on Google, as I kind of just mentioned. The better optimize your Google presence, the more people take action on what they see, and you're more likely to stand out versus your competition. As you see from this example, our client, Pacifica Senior Living, has optimized their online presence in search. Through Google My Business, landing pages, and other business listings, they can optimize their local search presence on the results page, increasing likelihood of being chosen. These tactics can complement your existing paid marketing efforts like paid search, the way they have done here. They have fully integrated their paid and organic tactics.
And I think it's really important to mention here that, there's a few details that are really critical as a manager of multiple locations that, when you're just managing one single location, this can be pretty straightforward. But once you start adding more and more locations, more communities, more different services that you're providing, it becomes a lot more complex. And even something as simple as a Google My Business listing becomes pretty complicated. And when I was managing some of these programs in the past, we would have all the time, someone would call from a certain location and they would say, hey, we just noticed on Google that our profile picture is now a photo of a dumpster, or it's now a photo of the alley behind our building. And what would happen is that the Google Maps car would come through, take a photo from the street view photo, and then because they weren't including any good content on their own, the Google listing was just defaulting to this street view photo. And where this comes into play is, if you are investing so much into creating a beautiful facility, a beautiful grounds You know, a lot of times your communities have wonderful landscaping, gardens, that beautiful front entrance photo. You've got nice shared living spaces. You really want to put your best foot forward online. And if you're not paying attention to what photos are representing your brand, then you're going to miss out. And consumers are going to see that, and they're not going to click through, you know, multiple photos to get to that nice photo that you provided. They're going to see what was posted most recently. And so one of the most common mistakes that we see is this set it and forget it approach, where people don't go in and maintain really good photography. You can add video content. You can update your links. You know, Google My Business and other places are not a place to set it and forget it. Your website is increasingly going to be intercepted by Google My Business. Google loves its own products. And so when someone is searching for, you know, care near me or senior living nearby, Google wants to own that search and keep you right there in their products. And if they can do that by making, you know, more and more content dynamic, the Q&A, the photography, the links, the ratings and reviews, that's where your customers are going to be, and they might not even make it to your website. So that's why it's so important, if Google is intercepting them there, that you need to be there and you need to be managing your presence on those sites. The other common mistake that we see, and as you can see on the slide, there is a review and a response to that review. You have to look at your reviews. You have to not only request reviews so that you have more reviews, but you also have to respond to those. And that's really important when you're thinking about how to take a brand detractor and turn them into a brand ambassador. You want to respond not only for that person who posted the review, but also to anyone else who might be reading that review, so that they know that you are taking care of them, that you take this feedback seriously, and that you're going to be following up with a better experience of the brand. They see that you've responded, and they see that that feedback matters. And that's really important, not only for the person that you're responding to, but also to anyone who might see it. What we've also seen, and we see this, you know, time and time again, it's really important, is that when someone comes in and they have a really negative experience and they post, you know, maybe they go in and they post a one-star review, and then they add a comment that says, if I could give 0 stars, I would, it's really an opportunity that you want to take advantage of to respond to that and to take their comments offline, you know, give them an option to speak with you, to you know, provide more details, and then work with them on a resolution. And when you do that, what happens is many times you'll see that these unhappy customers come back, and they'll change that review to maybe a 5-star review that is just a reaction to having received a really positive experience in response to their review. And so there's so much that goes into your Google My Business listing. It's not just about the data, but it's also about the dynamic content that's constantly changing and how you can use that to drive conversions down the road. So we talked about feedback, and we've talked about, you know, the various forms of feedback that you can see online, whether it's through your Google My Business listing, or maybe you've got feedback that you share on your own website. You're probably surveying your own residents internally. You might even be surveying the family members or caregivers. You might even already be surveying employees. And when you look at the way that this feedback hub looks, you see that there are many different places to collect feedback. And we refer to this internally as feedback anywhere. You can pull it from all of the access points and experiences, whether it's, you know, a survey or, you know, something more formal like a core Q survey, or, you know, pulling in ratings and reviews from third parties, Or, even your donors. If you've got donors or volunteers who are very connected to your organization, should be asking them for feedback and asking them for ratings and reviews. But then once you pull all of this feedback together, it's just like we were saying with the pulling together of sales and marketing, with the consumer experience. All of those tactics are so important to look at together. It's just as important to be looking at all of your feedback in a single place. So pull everything together from wherever you're pulling it, put it into a place, call it the feedback hub, and that feedback hub is going to be where you look at all of the sources together and analyze them for sentiment around key categories of the experience. So you can look at this in a couple of different ways. Maybe you are a large organization with lots of locations across multiple regions, and you want to break out your dashboard into geography and say, how is this region doing versus this region, and look at areas where maybe you need some improvement to the staff training, or look at the communication, or even the facilities. Maybe you're getting high marks for some of your facilities, but not for others. So that's one way of breaking down the feedback. Another way is to look at it from a category standpoint. So how do people feel about the parking and the food and the different amenities? Maybe your physical therapy team is getting really great ratings and reviews, but the cooking staff is maybe not getting great reviews. And you can start to pull out themes in the data. So it comes to not just a matter of, is this a 1-star experience or a 5-star experience? It gets more granular, and you can say, well, in this area, we should improve some of the experience around the accessibility of our services. In this other area, we need to improve the menu in the cafeteria. And then over here, we've got some opportunities to improve on the activities and entertainment. So you can start getting really granular by pulling in all of that feedback. But you're not going to get enough feedback by just looking at one source. If you're just looking at the residents or just the caregivers or just employees, you're not going to get that holistic voice of the customer. And when we use customer in this term, we really mean that anyone who experiences your brand is a customer. And so you want to look at that from a sentiment standpoint, but also be able to look at those data points to improve your operations wherever those are needed. And it's a great way to do that by looking at really real-time feedback. So now I want to turn it back over to Kyle, because he's going to be telling us a little bit more about what this looks like in action. And I know in the intro we talked about one client, but we're actually going to cover 3 of them today to talk about the different ways that senior living communities are looking at reputation and experience management. So Kyle, why don't you take over here?
Yep. Thank you, Annie. So I'm really excited to share these 3 examples. And the first one that we're doing, and I'll keep regurgitating the 3 pillars, right, of getting found, getting chosen, and getting better. And that's how we've lined up these 3 customer examples. So the first one, obviously, we've discussed the importance of getting found online. And this is a great example of a group that is excelling at getting found. And this is Sava Senior Care. So Sava has taken seriously the need to transparently communicate about what their locations are doing to ensure safety during COVID. By doing this and displaying accurate information on where potential residents or potential care seekers are looking for them, they've displayed this accurate information, and they've seen an increase of 28% on their Google My Business listings, which, as we know, leads to an increase in tours. Another key to driving potential care seekers to choose your brand is responding to reviews, and I know Annie just touched on that. You need to respond to your reviews to demonstrate engagement to the next care seeker And Sava is currently responding to 92% of all their reviews, which is just fantastic. Moving over into the getting chosen part of this, the second pillar of success is obviously going to be getting chosen. And we've established that communicating and displaying accurate information online will help people find you, but we obviously want these care seekers to choose us. So Cedarhurst's strategy of requesting feedback through different touch points has led them to collect a healthy volume of reviews for the locations, and they've been rewarded with an overall rating for their brand of a 4.7 star rating out of 5 stars, which again is just fantastic because people want to choose businesses with great star ratings, high volume of reviews, and recent reviews. The recent reviews is something that goes kind of unnoticed, but you know, every consumer wants an experience that's going to meet the times, right? If you have a bulk of your reviews that are, you know, a year old, that's a different scenario than COVID times. So you want to make sure that you're requesting feedback frequently so that people feel comfortable that their situation is going to be the same as someone else a month ago or 2 weeks ago. The business effect for Cedarhurst in this instance is an 86% increase of views of their Google My Business year over year, and an 82% increase of calls year over year from care seekers who are searching on Google. And again, as we know, that's leading to potential tours, and that's leading to potential residents driving occupancy. The last one on this, and certainly not least, we have Kindred, who has really excelled at getting better. They have done a tremendous job of collecting feedback through various forms, analyzing the feedback, and have made operational improvements based on the feedback that they have received. They've even taken it a step further by using their collected feedback and engaging in the way that their communities like and want them to. The metric that they are using, or the metric that we're using in this case, is reputation score. And this metric is based on several factors, including response rate, sentiment, number of views, search impression, and a few others. Kindred has increased their score to be 300 plus points higher than the industry average, which in all reality just means that they're exceeding their competition and getting found and getting chosen online, which is obviously the most critical part of everyone's business here. With that, I'll leave it to Annie for the key takeaways.
Thanks, Kyle. And as I'm getting ready to cover this slide, I just want to remind everyone that you can post your questions in the Q&A here, and we're going to be getting ready to do Q&A here in just a moment. So today's key takeaways are, obviously get found, get chosen, get better. But what do these mean? So getting found is all about bringing together your sales and marketing and consumer experience strategies so that you're looking at things from a holistic point of view and how your visibility and access appears online. The second piece is, getting chosen is all about seizing any second chances that you have to respond to feedback. As I mentioned, looking at your reviews, soliciting reviews, and really owning the story at every opportunity. You want to make sure your information is accurate, up to date, dynamic, and that you are looking at your online channels so that the content is really going to drive conversions. And then this third piece, as we've said several times, is so important. You need to be proactive with feedback. Look at all of your audiences. Look at who could be saying something about you. And it's not just about finding out where you can improve, but it's also about improving your online reputation by converting that feedback into ratings and reviews. And that's going to help you to complete this whole cycle of getting found, getting chosen, and getting better. Over time, it's going to continue to fulfill itself. And before I go on to the last piece, which is the Q&A, I want to note that we have had a couple of inquiries online. There were some technical issues. It looked like a few people weren't able to see the slides advancing. And so we want to let you know that the slides will be made available for you to review afterward. And like I said, I think some of the text was rendering a little bit strangely, at least on my end it was. And so we'll make sure that you get the complete and fully visual deck of slides after this. Two other resources I want to point you to before we open it up to Q&A. One would be, if you want to contact us and talk to us about any of the things that we've talked about today, just want to understand a little bit more, please visit the reputation.com senior living page at reputation.com/senior-living, or you can download our ebook, and that ebook is called Effective Online Reputation Management for Senior Living Facilities, and you can find that on that senior living page on our website. And also, these slides are going to be available in the Handouts tab if you'd like to download those and take a look at things, along with the other resources that we've provided. So we're going to open things up to Q&A now. We're going to respond to a few questions that have already come in, but we're also open to more questions, so please submit those. We have plenty of time, and Kyle and I are really excited to engage with you all. I'll cover that.
Thanks,
first.
Annie and Kyle.
Oh,
No, it's okay. Thanks for the information. I just wanted to remind people, if they do want to ask questions, just type it in using the question and answers tab on the left part of your screen. We're going to get to as many as we can in the remaining minutes. And our first question comes from Erin, who's wondering, everything she's read says that senior living providers can't request reviews, so can you shed any light on that, whether it is possible to request reviews, or if there's maybe sometimes when you can and other times when you can't?
Sure. So there's a lot of conversation around this. Obviously, it's a newer area, but if you're looking at any websites that have ratings and reviews on them, all but one that I am aware of do allow for requesting reviews. It is not in any way a violation of terms of service. Most websites where you can see ratings and reviews, they actually want to see a holistic view. They want to see all of the feedback. And so by requesting reviews from everybody, you are going to be giving a much more realistic and statistically significant impression of your brand. And that's so important because when you start to look at the number of reviews for a particular location, you're going to see that one with 2 reviews is probably not going to be as credible as one that has 60 reviews. Even if the 2 reviews that are out there are both 5 stars, Google is actually going to rank the site with 60 reviews higher if it's got 4.5 stars, and that's because the number of reviews is more statistically significant and reliable. The other piece of this that I think is really important when you are requesting reviews, because there can be some concern. Well, what if someone says something bad about us, or what if they post something negative? And the way that human behavior has proven time and time again with 100% of our customers and clients that we've seen is that the more feedback you request, the higher the sentiment will go. And so what I mean by that is, if I have a negative experience with your brand, I have a natural motivation and inclination to go out there and just blast you online and say, really negative things because, it feels better to vent. And if I have a pretty good experience or a really good experience, it might not even occur to me that, I better tell someone that I had a satisfactory experience, or I better tell someone that I had a good experience. But if you ask me and I start to think about it, I realize, yeah, I did have a good experience. And so what happens is when our clients turn on review requesting and they start asking for feedback from all of their clients and not just, a few here and there or not requesting at all, by and large, they see that sentiment goes up, because what you're doing is you are bringing a voice to the positive feedback that may not have otherwise occurred. The other thing that does is it starts to drown out some of the negative feedback. So if you've got, a review out there that it's just really a bummer and they're saying some really unfortunate things, but it's not a violation of that website terms of service, and so you can't flag it for removal, you need to be requesting reviews, because the only way to bury that negative feedback is with more recent positive feedback. And so that's why we really encourage review requesting, and it is allowed for most review sites that are out there. The one that comes to mind where they do not allow for review requesting is Yelp. That's really the only one. And these things are changing all the time, so I would just recommend you take a look at the terms of service for any sites that you have a presence and just, confirm that. But in our experience, it has been a really good thing and an encouraged thing to request feedback from everyone that you can.
Great. Our next question comes from Lorraine, and she said while she was looking into this webinar, she looked to see what the reputation of her community looked like online, and she found out that she was listed as an assisted living facility, but that's incorrect. Do you know how she could get this corrected?
Yes. And Kyle, do you want to chime in here, since you're working more closely with clients on this? How are they managing these things?
Yeah, I'd be happy to help there. So you're not alone there, Lorraine. We see that commonly, and one way to obviously fix that is whether or not you're utilizing a platform or whether or not you're having to go in there. But Google My Business has different attributes, and when I say attributes, obviously you guys, are an assisted living facility, but they have you listed as that. That could be from various reasons. That could be from someone just editing your Google My Business page. That could be from the type of feedback you get, or Google's best guess as to what facility you are. So what I'd recommend, and whatever type of facility you are, I would recommend either, again, working with the platform to make sure that information is correct through not only Google My Business, but through multiple channels. Just to, again, make sure that if someone is searching for your type of care nearby, that they're not, looking at you as an assisted living facility in their search, and you guys aren't, meeting their needs for that matter. And just really making sure that the categories that you are input, basically placed within your Google My Business panel, so that the type of care you provide, you're found for that specific type. And I hope that helps. I could go on and on for 35 minutes about that, but that's my, quick answer to that.
Great. And we have a question from Cheryl asking if you could talk about the return on investment on SEO.
Yes, and if you don't mind, I saw that there are two questions around SEO, and I want to combine my answer to both of them. So in addition to the ROI of search engine optimization, Donald is asking about the website optimization specifically, so your own website. And traditionally, the way that we've been taught that search engine optimization or SEO works is very different from the way it now works. So, back in the day, forever ago, which was really, just a few years ago, search engine optimization was all about the investment that you put into your own website for keywords and content and tagging things with the right technical tags so that the bot could find your website, and that you would invest in that SEO, and then the return on that would be in the conversions that you get on your own website. And this is how search engine optimization worked for years. But as Google has gotten better and better at really refining their algorithms, what they've done is they have started to prioritize local search, and they have started to create different ways of prioritizing certain search terms and certain results for certain people. So it goes back to right content, right person, right time. And this is why when I Google search for a senior living community nearby, I'm going to get a completely different set of results than what Kyle would search, because he's in a different state, and he's going to be seeing different brands and different local locations. So geography is really important to that local search. The other thing that's really important is feedback. So Google has, for the past 3 years, they have been increasing the priority of feedback in their own search results algorithm. And that's because they know that consumer-generated content is credible. So when you start to look at your SEO plan, you need to look at two things: your on-site SEO and your off-site SEO. I would look at it as, and this is not a real statistic, this is just, a general rule of thumb, is the 80-20 principle. So if you figure 20% of your website visitors are just going to come straight to your website, that's where they're going to go. The other 80% of that search traffic is happening on other sites, and we refer to that as off-site SEO. So, places like, your Google My Business listing, or, all of the other listing sites that you can look at, whether it's a directory where people can search for care, or if it is a local website that's got businesses listed, that's all considered off-site SEO. And you need to be found on all of those places. You need to own that and optimize that, because if someone searches for your brand or for the keywords that you're targeting, you want to own more than just that one result in the top 10. One result in the top 10 is your own website. There's going to be 9 other results on that results page that you can either own and be in control of, or they're just going to be up to chance. And if there's incorrect information out there, negative ratings and reviews, a phone number that is no longer accurate, that's going to be detrimental to you, because Google is looking at all of this and looking at consistency across all of that data. So you want to own every single result that's on that front page of results, and that's your off-site SEO. So that's the difference between your website SEO and your off-site SEO. Now, how do you look at the ROI of this? And the most basic way that I can recommend you look at the ROI of your SEO is, and that's a lot of letters that I just strung together there, is to look at all of the different places that you are managing a presence that is able to convert. So if on your website you can convert by having someone sign up for a tour, let's say, or make a phone call, and you know that 10% of those are going to result in a follow-up, and then out of that there's 50% that actually become a resident. You can start to look at and calculate how many of these hits to my own website am I going to need in order to get a return on the investment that I'm putting into all of the marketing that's driving to that, all of the advertising that I'm doing, all of the the billboards, the the ads, the AdWords, all of the digital and traditional tactics. And you have to kind of use a, somewhat of either an estimated conversion rate, or you have to have a really strong CRM and customer relationship management system in order to track those conversions from start to finish. What you can do on Google and Google My Business, other listing sites, is it's a really rudimentary tactic, and it's very effective, is create some URL tracking parameters, which means you go in, you create certain terms that are going to be tied to you can call it a campaign, and maybe you just say, this is my Google My Business URL. Take that specific URL that you've created with those special parameters, use that as the URL for booking a tour or scheduling a visit there in your Google My Business information. You can start to track and say, okay, well, if I'm getting 2 out of 10 conversions on my website traffic, and I'm getting 1 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 or whatever that number is on my Google My Business traffic, you can start to then break out and say, well, where should I be investing my money? Should I put my marketing dollars into my website, or should I put more marketing dollars into managing content and managing data on third-party sites? And a lot of that is going to be driven by the return that you're seeing based on those custom URLs. You can start to break out the sources of that conversion traffic. I know I went on really long for that answer, mostly because I love talking about ROI and I love talking about conversion trackability. So for any of you that are, concerned or would like to go into deeper detail, I would love to talk to you about this all day long. We have some really strong experts and Google experts within our team. And if you go to our website and just go to the blog and start looking through, you can see some articles that the team has written about this. And there's, if you're just getting started in this and trying to quantify the value of this investment, there's some really good resources there.
Great. Well, another question we had, we were just talking a lot about Google, but what about other sites that provide information about senior living options for consumers? Do operators need to be concerned about those sites too? And if so, what can they do about that?
Yeah, so Kyle, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because that's really the space that you have the most expertise in, some of those longer tail senior living search sites.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. And a key component in making sure that you're popping up in search when someone does do that nearby search is what we call review spread. And really what that means is that you have a nice, healthy volume of reviews on multiple sites, and realistically the sites that matter to you and for your level of care. So it's important that you pay attention to where your presence is and what that looks like. We spend a lot of time on Google, and rightly so, right? Because Google is, they're the kingmaker as far as whether or not you show up in search, and a lot of people do go there. But that's not to say that everyone goes there. So it could be the Facebooks of the world. It could be, care.com or Place for Mom, any site that you really care about that you're starting to see traffic from. It's really important that as you go through that feedback initiative and trying to collect feedback from whether or not it's the loved ones of the residents that you're taking care of, whether or not it's the donors, the employees, multiple strategies that you're attempting to do, it really makes sense to spread out that volume that you have so that, again, you don't have a neglected stepchild somewhere and you have, a rock star somewhere else. So it's really, really important to make sure that you have feedback everywhere where people are looking.
Great. And another question we have, this one is from Lauren. What are your suggestions for collecting reviews from a senior population that may not have a Google account or may not be tech savvy?
Yeah, that is a very common question that we get, and so I could throw a few stats at you about, boomers and that there's, 70% of them are using smartphones actively, and that, technology is going to continue to be really important in the future as we transform what senior care looks like. But none of that matters if the person who you need to request the review from today is, doesn't have a Google presence or doesn't have an account somewhere. And for those situations, what we really recommend is that you use we refer to this internally as a kiosk program, where basically you are collecting feedback using an iPad or some other method where it can be assisted. So, maybe the person who is, coming by to do activities that day, they take an iPad with them wherever they go, and they're just collecting feedback. And maybe it's based on interactions. They get that feedback in person, or maybe there's a family member there with the resident that day that they want to collect a review from. And because they've got that tablet, think of it as a mobile kiosk where you can interact with, they're able to use that to collect it all into a single place. And maybe they're using it just for feedback internally. Maybe they are using it to publish out to Google, but they can use that as sort of an on-the-go, when the situation makes it possible. Because, we know that not every situation makes it possible to collect that feedback in the moment, or even to, send a text later. You've got to seize the moments that you can whenever you have a population that has some sort of struggle with interacting with technology.
Yeah, and I can add a point to that too. That's great advice, Annie. And there's two kind of things you can pay attention to as well, right? If you're a nonprofit right now and you're looking to build up volume of reviews, then there's something that kind of goes unnoticed that you can really kind of lean on, and that would be sending a feedback request to your individual donors. We do know that nonprofits have big corporate donors, but I serve on the board of a charity, and we have plenty of individual donors that since I was started joining on the board of directors, we're going to start review requesting or requesting feedback from the individual donors to see how we're doing. Another, I guess, industry trend that everyone here can pay attention to that, hopefully will become, something that everyone can use. And that would be soliciting feedback via Alexa or some type of voice service where those seniors that may not be able to, answer a digital feedback request on a phone or an iPad, that they would be able to do it via Alexa. Another big part of that too, I guess, to wrap this up, again, what we talked about in requesting feedback from employees, that's going to be really, really big for you. As we talked about with, turnover and kind of burnout in the space this year, requesting feedback from them, listening and taking action. And then ultimately what you can do too is ask your employees to then leave reviews on Glassdoor and Indeed, so that as you try to scale your operation or as you're trying to fill positions, you really have a good handle. And the same way that we talk about having a nice volume of reviews on review sites for potential residents, it's important to have that same kind of strategy on Glassdoor and Indeed or other employee sites to make sure that they're getting the most up-to-date information before they choose to work with you guys. And I'll stop there.
Thank you for all that great information, Annie and Kyle. I know that our audience, people attending today, really appreciated it. That is all the time we have for questions today, but if you had a question and it wasn't answered, you'll be followed up with. So we hope you found today's webinar helpful. This session will be available shortly to listen to again online at the address you see on your screen, mcknightseniorliving.com/111620webinar. We'd like to give special thanks to our speakers, Annie and Cal, for being with us today to share their insights, and thanks to our sponsor, Reputation.com. You can visit Reputation.com to learn more about the company. And thanks to everyone listening today for tuning in and asking these great questions. For McKnight Senior Living, this is Lois Bowers.